Here's the question that should be keeping every Warriors fan awake at night. What happens when the franchise that revolutionized basketball with small ball lineups suddenly realizes they desperately need exactly what they spent a decade proving they didn't? The Golden State Warriors, the team that made traditional centers obsolete, that turned the NBA upside down with pace and space basketball, that convinced an entire generation of executives that size didn't matter, are now scrambling to find a big man before the trade deadline. The irony is almost poetic. Almost. Because right now, with the Warriors sitting at an impressive 23-8 after their recent surge, this isn't about nostalgia or admitting mistakes. This is about survival in a league that's evolved past even their revolutionary blueprint. General Manager Mike Dunleavy Jr. just threw a bucket of ice-cold reality on the fanbase's dreams of landing a superstar like Jimmy Butler or Giannis Antetokounmpo. Instead, he's hunting for something far less glamorous, but potentially just as crucial: an athletic defensive center who can protect the rim and clean up the mess that's been plaguing this team all season long. But here's where it gets fascinating and complicated. One of their primary targets just became significantly more valuable, and it has nothing to do with blocked shots or alley-oops. Let's cut through the noise and talk about what Mike Dunleavy Jr. actually said on NBC Sports Bay Area's Warriors pregame live. When Bonta Hill asked about pursuing a Jimmy Butler caliber trade, Dunleavy didn't dance around it. He delivered a dose of reality that probably deflated 1,000 trade machine simulations across Warriors Twitter. We'll look to do stuff that makes our team better, but I wouldn't bank on that type of move, Dunleavy stated plainly. I mean, to get a guy like Jimmy Butler to have the improvement we did from being a .500 team to 23-8 or whatever it was, I mean, that's going to be pretty unrealistic. Now, before the pitchforks come out, let's analyze what he's really saying here. This isn't a white flag. This isn't Dunleavy admitting defeat or lacking ambition. This is a seasoned executive who understands the mathematics of NBA trades in 2025. The Warriors don't have the draft capital that teams like Oklahoma City can throw around. They don't have young, cost-controlled stars on rookie contracts that rebuilding teams covet. What they have is a championship window that's still open but narrowing, and a roster that needs specific upgrades, not wholesale changes. The Warriors' transformation from a .500 team earlier this season to their current 23-8 record didn't happen because of roster additions. It happened because of internal improvements, better execution, and Stephen Curry reminding everyone why he's still one of the most devastating offensive weapons in basketball history. Dunleavy recognizes that momentum, and he's not about to mortgage the future for a rental player who might disrupt the chemistry that's finally clicking. But, and this is crucial, he's not standing pat either. The Warriors have glaring weaknesses that playoff teams will exploit mercilessly. Their turnover rate has been catastrophic at times, leading to easy transition opportunities for opponents. More critically, they lack size and rim protection. When teams attack the paint against Golden State, it's often like shooting fish in a barrel. Draymond Green can't guard the rim and orchestrate the defense simultaneously. Kevin Looney provides toughness, but lacks the vertical athleticism to deter modern, explosive finishers. Tracy Jackson-Davis shows flashes, but remains inconsistent. This is why Dunleavy's focus has shifted to a very specific target: an athletic defensive center who can alter shots, finish lobs, and provide the vertical spacing that opens up Golden State's perimeter-oriented offense even further. NBA insider Chris Haynes dropped a report over the weekend that crystallized Golden State center search into 3 names: Nick Claxton of the Brooklyn Nets, Daniel Gafford of the Dallas Mavericks, and Robert Williams III of the Portland Trail Blazers. Each represents a different flavor of what the Warriors need. Gafford brings elite rim-running ability and shot-blocking instincts, though his offensive game remains limited. Robert Williams III, when healthy, is perhaps the most naturally gifted defender of the 3, capable of switching onto guards and protecting the rim with equal effectiveness. But that, when healthy, qualifier is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Time Lord's injury history reads like a medical textbook. Then there's Nick Claxton. At first glance, he seems like the obvious choice. At 6 feet 11 inches with a 7 feet 2 inches wingspan, Claxton combines the size the Warriors lack with the athleticism they covet. He's averaging 9.6 points, 8.4 rebounds, and 1.8 blocks per game this season, while shooting an efficient 66.7% from the field. He's 26 years old in his prime, and locked into a contract that runs through 2028 with a player option for the final year. But here's where the story takes a turn that should have every Warriors executive leaning forward in their chairs. Nick Claxton has suddenly become a playmaker. Throughout his first 6 NBA seasons, Nick Claxton was exactly what you'd expect from a modern athletic center. He caught lobs, blocked shots, switched on defense, and occasionally made the simple pass out of the short roll. His assist numbers reflected this limited role, never averaging more than 2.2 assists per game, typically hovering around 1.5. This season, Claxton is averaging 4.4 assists per game. Let that sink in for a moment. That's not a marginal improvement. That's not statistical noise. That's a fundamental evolution in his game that makes him exponentially more valuable in a Steve Kerr offense. To put this into proper context, Claxton currently ranks 4th among all NBA centers in assists per game. The 3 players ahead of him, Nikola Jokic, Alperen Sengun, and Julius Randle, though Randle should really be classified as a power forward. Jokic is arguably the greatest passing big man in NBA history. Sengun is an offensive savant who runs Houston's entire system through the high post. And Claxton is somehow in that conversation. When asked about his playmaking surge, Claxton explained, "Just in a flow state, knowing the spots that I'm going to be in, knowing where my teammates knowing where to find them, and the coaches just trusting me to make plays." That last part, the coaches just trusting me to make plays, is critical. Second-year Nets head coach Jordi Fernandez has unlocked something in Claxton that previous coaching staffs either didn't see or didn't prioritize. Brooklyn's offense now runs through Claxton in ways that would have seemed absurd 2 years ago. He's making reads out of the post, hitting cutters from the elbow, and delivering skip passes to shooters in the corners. Now, skeptics will immediately point out that Claxton's assist numbers are inflated by playing on a rebuilding Nets team with an 8-19 record. Young players get more opportunities. The ball moves more freely when there's no pressure to win. Maybe this is just a mirage created by circumstance. But here's why that argument doesn't hold water for the Warriors specifically. Golden State's offense has always demanded intelligent passing from the center position. This isn't a system where the big man sets screens and rolls to the rim. This is an offense built on constant motion, split cuts, and reading defensive rotations in real time. From Andrew Bogut's brilliant passing during the first championship run, to Draymond Green's point-forward capabilities, to Kevin Looney's underrated playmaking, the Warriors have consistently featured big men who could make the right read. Claxton's newfound passing ability isn't just a nice bonus, it's a prerequisite for thriving in Golden State's system. The question isn't whether his assists are real or inflated. The question is whether he can make those same reads when Stephen Curry is flying off screens, when Klay Thompson is relocating to the corner, when Andrew Wiggins is cutting backdoor. And based on the film, the answer appears to be yes. Here's where reality crashes into aspiration like a freight train. Nick Claxton makes $25.4 million this season. That's not a prohibitive number in the modern NBA, but it's also not insignificant. For the Warriors to acquire him, they'd need to send out roughly $20 to $25 million in matching salary, depending on the specific trade rules and whether they're operating as an over-the-cap team using exceptions. What does Golden State have to offer? Andrew Wiggins makes $26.3 million and would be the obvious salary match, but trading Wiggins creates a massive hole on the wing and removes one of their few players capable of defending elite scorers. Gary Payton to Kevin Looney, and a combination of younger players like Moses Moody or Jonathan Kuminga could theoretically get the math to work. But then you're getting the depth that's been crucial to the team's recent success. And that's before we even discuss draft capital. The Nets are rebuilding. They're not looking for win-now veterans. They want picks, young players with upside, and the flexibility to continue their teardown. The Warriors don't have a treasure trove of first-round picks to offer. They've already traded away future assets in previous deals. What they can offer is limited, and Brooklyn knows it. This is the fundamental tension in any Warriors trade discussion. They need to get better without sacrificing the chemistry and depth that's made them better. It's a nearly impossible needle to thread, which is probably why Dunleavy was so quick to temper expectations about blockbuster moves. But let's game this out. What if the Warriors offered something like Kevin Looney, Gary Payton II, Moses Moody, and a protected first-round pick for Claxton? Brooklyn gets a young wing with potential in Moody, 2 veterans they could flip or buy out, and a draft asset. Golden State gets their athletic, playmaking center without completely destroying their rotation. Would Brooklyn accept that? Probably not, without significant protections being removed from that pick or additional draft capital being included. Would Golden State offer more? That depends on how desperate they are and whether they believe Claxton is the difference between a second-round exit and a legitimate championship run. Step back from the specific trade scenarios for a moment and consider what this entire situation reveals about where the NBA is in 2025. The Warriors spent the better part of a decade proving that traditional centers were dinosaurs. They won championships with Draymond Green at center, with lineups that featured 5 players who could shoot, pass, and switch. They made positionless basketball the dominant philosophy across the league. And now they're desperately searching for a traditional rim-protecting center. Not because they were wrong about their philosophy, but because the league adapted. Teams got bigger again. Star players like Giannis, Joel Embiid, and Anthony Davis punished small ball lineups in the playoffs. The pendulum swung back toward size, and the Warriors suddenly found themselves on the wrong side of the evolutionary curve. But here's what makes the Claxton pursuit so fascinating. He represents a synthesis of both eras. He's got the size and rim protection of a traditional center, but he's also got the passing, mobility, and basketball IQ that the modern game demands. He's not a dinosaur, and he's not a small ball 5. He's something new, a player who can thrive in multiple systems and adapt to different styles of play. If the Warriors land Claxton, they're not abandoning their principles. They're evolving them. They're acknowledging that basketball is a game of constant adaptation, where the teams that win championships are the ones willing to recognize their weaknesses and address them, even if it means contradicting their own previous success. So, where does this leave us? The Warriors are hunting for center. They've identified 3 realistic targets, with Nick Claxton emerging as perhaps the most intriguing option thanks to his sudden evolution as a playmaker. Mike Dunleavy Jr. has made it clear that superstar trades aren't on the table, but meaningful roster improvements absolutely are. The clock is ticking. Stephen Curry is 36 years old and still playing at an MVP level, but Father Time remains undefeated. Draymond Green's defensive brilliance can't mask the team's lack of size forever. Klay Thompson is no longer with the team, having moved on in free agency. This current iteration of the Warriors has a championship window, but it's measured in seasons, not decades. Claxton's increased playmaking doesn't just make him a more valuable trade target, it makes him a potentially perfect fit for what Golden State needs. But perfect fits don't matter if you can't make the deal work financially and asset-wise. The Warriors are in a bind, trying to improve without sacrificing the depth and chemistry that's fueled their resurgence. This is the tightrope walk of championship contention in the modern NBA. One wrong move, and you're the Lakers, constantly churning through rosters in search of the perfect combination. One failure to act, and you're watching your window slam shut while younger, hungrier teams pass you by. The Warriors aren't chasing unrealistic dreams of landing Giannis or Jimmy Butler. They're being pragmatic, focused, and strategic. Whether that's enough to get them back to the mountaintop remains to be seen. But one thing is certain. The next few weeks before the trade deadline will define the trajectory of this franchise for years to come. If you're as locked in on these Warriors trade scenarios as I am, if you're running your own trade machine simulations at 2 a.m. trying to make the math work, drop a comment below with your best Nick Claxton trade proposal. And if you think Dunleavy is making a mistake by not going all in for superstar, I want to hear that too. This is the kind of front office chess match that separates championship teams from pretenders, and we're all watching it unfold in real time.